film study video is going to have a very specific focus. We're going to look at anomalous, or what I would call extraordinary plays that the Detroit Lions offense has utilized in the last 2 years under Ben Johnson, and some of the situations whereby he's chosen to call them. Basically, what they do, Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, when the chips are down, when he's decided to go all in, even though maybe he didn't have to in some situations. I kind of addressed the fourth down decisions in a video that came out, I think, 2 days after the Lions' 34-31 loss to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. So this isn't really going to focus on the decisions, whether he should or should not have called or have gone for it or should have punted or kicked a field goal in those cases. That video that I mentioned was called Bold Moves and a Bitter Defeat, and it focused on those decisions. So I'll link it up here in the description if you want to check it out. This one is going to focus on the specific play concepts that are called when Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell decide to go for it. Whether it's fourth down or third down, in fact. And what I mean by go for it on third down, which sounds silly, is I think their play calling on third down is quite obviously related to their willingness to go for it on fourth down. Everyone else in the league on 3rd and 7, they're throwing the football. If it's an incomplete pass, you have to punt. There's plenty of times where Ben Johnson is willing to run the football on 3rd and 7. Why? Because they know that they're going to go for it on 4th and 2. That does make total sense. I'm able to follow along with that thought process. Many other people way smarter than me identified it, quite early on in the Dan Campbell regime, or Dan Campbell / Ben Johnson partnership in terms of the offense. But there's some fourth down plays that don't fit that paradigm, that don't fit that under that umbrella. What I'm describing is a 4th and 5 or a 4th and 6 where they're still willing to run the football. I would say it's an anomalous offense that presents glitches to defenses and defensive coordinators at times, because in those 4th and 5 situations, they don't have another down to play with. I think oftentimes it's call the run play in the huddle, and then Goff has another play to check to if they get a particular look. He has the ability to check out of the run play depending on the look the defense gives pre-snap. But it can go the other way as well. I believe on the third and 12 in the second quarter against the 49ers, when Goff clearly checks to a run play, he motions Laporta and then St. Brown across. Gibbs runs for the first down. I think it's a 16-yard gain, maybe 17. That one, if you recall, led to a field goal that puts Detroit up 24-7. Now, it doesn't fit into the fourth down description that I gave you at the beginning of the video, but I believe they're related. That one was a check with Goff, if you ask me, meaning there's 2 plays probably called in the huddle. But nonetheless, either way, Ben Johnson's created a system in those moments where Goff and his players can go out and execute based on the look they get. Now, I won't address it in this video, but I do suspect that they do the same thing often on 1st and 10. How often? I don't know. Is it 16 times a year? Is it 50 times a year? I'm not sure. But I do know that they have it built into the offense. Goff and the players can execute it flawlessly on 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 7 or 4th and 5. It stands to reason that they could do the same thing on 1st and 10. We will here focus on some of the fourth down play calls, like I said, not necessarily the decisions, whether Dan Campbell chooses to fold, punt, or go all in when it's high stakes. Go for it, basically. So we'll get this started with a 3rd and 5 against the Bears in 2022. It's a shovel trap to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Do I think there's a personnel aspect to some of the 3rd and 4th down calls that Ben Johnson makes? Sure, you're trying to get the ball to your best players. There's people who say players, not plays, in big situations, meaning get the ball to your best players in the big moments. There's also plenty of offensive coordinators that rely on plays, scheme, if you will. I think Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, by extension as well, they do a great job of bridging the gap between the two. You've got an empty formation. You notice there's no running back in the backfield back here with Goff. St. Brown is in the slot. It's going to be a shovel trap. So Jackson is going to trap the first defender outside of the guard. In this case, it ends up being a D tackle or defensive tackle. St. Brown is able to power through an attempted tackle by Jaquan Brisker, who's in man. And Jackson, who just got traded to, or just got signed by the Ravens, I should say, number 4. But look at the eyes for Brisker. He's a guy that I enjoy watching a ton of film of, to be honest with you. He's very versatile, high-level football player, great tackler, really good in coverage, if you ask me. Definitely part of the drastic improvements that the Bears have made defensively since games like this one in 2022. That shovel trap, how often is it run? Well, I don't know, to be honest with you, but I know that it's not run to 90 to 100 reception per year wide receivers very often. First of all, second of all, it's not normally run on third and medium, which I think is what third and five would fall under. I don't know too many offensive coordinators that I watch film of, and really in the last 4 years of running an NFL film analysis YouTube channel, the Ravens offensive coordinators and AFC North teams is what I've been able to focus on. So maybe part of this is my own lack of coordinators that I've watched in depth. But you, as a Lions fan, feel free to let me know. I feel like Ben Johnson has plenty of situations like this where he outfoxes, outmaneuvers, puts his players in position to just outplay the opposition based on simple alignment. Here, you've got a third and 12. Covered this many times on the channel. Forgive me for showing it one more time, but in the context of this video, fourth down plays, anomalous or extraordinary design, I think you've got an incredible one here. Once Goff sees St. Brown motion across, he knows it's man. Double checks by bringing Laporta back to the other side into the boundary. Sure enough, Warner goes over there. Look at the alignment that you've got, this heavy overload of defensive linemen to one side of the midline. Midline is where the ball separates the right and left-hand side of the offense, or right and left-hand side of the defense. So it's a little bit high there. Forgive me for that. But notice how many players are at the bottom of this dividing line, this red line that I've drawn for the 49ers. 4. You have a 5th player on the midline and a 6th player on the midline. So basically that counts for 5. The 2 guys who generally have their feet on the midline count as half a man to either side. So you've clearly got 4 to the downside and 2 on the midline. Counts for 5 overall. When you pull the right guard and right tackle from the boundary to lead out for Gibbs, even if Chase Young doesn't wrong arm this, of course there's nobody to wrong arm it to, Gibbs is going to have an opportunity to get downhill. In this case, ends up getting 13 yards. It's a beautifully designed play. What I'm most interested in the part that I don't claim to understand all of it, is what kind of power does Ben Johnson give? How much authority? Well, it's obviously a shit ton of it, because what you do have here pre-snap, before the motion, is what looks like a more balanced defense with 2 second-level players here. 2 inside linebackers. Once St. Brown goes across, Goff knows how he can further manipulate the defense, getting Warner to go with him. Gone is that other second-level defender, other second-level inside linebacker, that is, who would be there more in direct run support. Who in the world runs the ball on 3rd and 12 at any level of football, unless you're up by 4 scores and it's the second half and you're just trying to run out the clock? It's a beautifully designed play. It's even more fun to talk about and try to understand from a pre-snap situation. One more example of that, somewhat similar here. It's a 3rd and 10 against Denver. Not all the machinations pre-snap in terms of motion, Goff moving people around. I think sometimes the order is it's a run play that's called, and then he can check to a pass play, which I think is what you've got here. The previous one, I think, was a pass play that was called, and Goff was taught all week, if we get this particular look by the defense with 3 into the boundary and we know it's man, let's manipulate the heck out of them and run the ball to the field. Here is the opposite. A run play is called, in my opinion. Gibbs does pick it up. He gets 11 yards against Denver. Yeah, maybe you've got a hold on from St. Brown up at the top of the screen against Justin Simmons, the guy who's still a free agent, I believe, from Denver, 31, right up here. Perhaps you got a hold at the point of attack, but it's a great job, if you ask me, of running into the boundary on a 3rd and 10 where there's less space. But look at the players who are getting the ball here on these anomalous situations. St. Brown, Gibbs so far, and then the next one is Jamison Williams. Guys with speed. Guys with the ability to make someone miss. This is obviously the reverse for a touchdown. It's on a 1st and 10, so it doesn't fit in our 3rd, 4th down film study topic or the focus of what we're doing here. Nonetheless, it's an anomalous play. Incredibly well designed, because you're basically outnumbering the defense at the point of attack. You had 3 receivers to one side, Reynolds, St. Brown, and the tight end. You had one X receiver to the top side. Well, he's the guy getting the football. So it's almost like student body left or student body right, where you're just outnumbering people to the point of attack. Got two pulling linemen that they've traded for two of the receivers. Tight end out in front. Anomalous plays, extraordinary, abnormal plays, whatever you want to call them. These are things that the Ben Johnson offense utilizes in certain parts of the field in certain game situations. Oftentimes it is a third or a fourth down. My favorite one from a conceptual standpoint is split backs. And as you see these cycle through, you will see the Chiefs utilize it in the Super Bowl, by the way. But you'll notice the down and distance listed at the bottom of the screen. You'll also notice that it's 100% of the time run to the Lions' left-hand side, to a tight end, fullback, or in the case of Malcolm Rodriguez here in a moment, inside linebacker masquerading as a fullback as a lead blocker. Conceptually, it's the same scheme, left guard pulling. Fullback / tight end is going to cut the near side D end. They're going to force the corner to make the tackle. Corner that I'm referencing is off screen right here for the Chargers. So off screen, cut Bosa, pin down with the left tackle, wrap and lead with the left guard, and the X receiver who's off screen. I think it's Reynolds here. It's actually not Reynolds. My apologies. It's 80. He's going to go get the frontside inside linebacker or second level defender. St. Brown isn't able to turn it into a big game, but nonetheless, he's able to get the first down 2 plays later or maybe 3 plays later. Pretty much the same exact play from a different alignment. He can do it from 11 personnel. He can do it from 21, which you'll notice similarity-wise for the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. Tight end to the right. The halfback, the guy who's going to get the ball, also to the right. So they're running it to the weak side. Whether the weak side is to the boundary or the field kind of doesn't matter. Point is they're running it away from the tight end. Running it to the weak side where there's only one receiver. Not necessarily using the fullback as a lead blocker. Same concept here. You guys have seen it many times if you're a Lions fan and you watch my channel. Fullback isn't necessarily leading out to a second level defender. When I refer to a lead or ISO concept, that's what we call it, is you're getting to the second level. This is almost like a cut to the outside. Some people would say that these blocks shouldn't be legal. Nonetheless, it's a great concept. It's geometrically perfect. You're pinning down on someone. In this case, it happens to be C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's getting pinned down for the Eagles. The near side or play side outside linebacker edge defender is getting cut, and then the guard is pulling and wrapping out to go get the corner. It's impossible to defend to the weak side unless you can recognize the formation. The cool thing about the way Ben Johnson runs the offense is he's got plays like this, but he uses them infrequently enough, if I'm saying that in the right manner, such that defenses aren't trained in a given week to recognize them enough. I have yet to see any team, and you're seeing the plays cycle through, so you can let me know. I've yet to see any team have players point to the alignment of the running backs, Goff under center. I call it split backs. This, conceptually, it's a diamond there because Gibbs was in the backfield along with St. Brown. Point is, teams are not prepared for it, even though we've seen it multiple times. And as fans, you have now been prepared by me and plenty of others, I'm sure, that if you see a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 and they line up in split backs with the tight end to the right and an actual halfback to the right, you can bet, whatever you're willing to bet, that it's going to be a sweep to the left. Are there complementary plays off of it? I'm sure they practice some, but until someone stops it, you really don't need to go to it. It's a beautiful play, beautiful concept. Very few teams at the NFL level utilize it. Hell, very few teams at the high school level utilize split backs for that matter. Let's look at 3 other 4th down situations from 2023. This is a 4th and 5 in that game against the Chargers where I think they went for it on 4th down 7 times, maybe 8. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. It's a trap concept. Montgomery bounces it. He does gain 6 yards. Beautiful design from the standpoint of you're using your, quote, downhill runner, Montgomery, on what should be a quick hitter downhill concept. This defensive tackle actually kind of wrong arms it on Jackson's trap block, forces Montgomery to read it, kick it out. Can't really account for the front side safety. Derwin James is also there. Give the end zone angle for this one. How many teams run trap in the NFL? Well, I've discussed this for over a year, mostly on Lions videos. There are more teams running trap than what I noticed 2 or 3 years ago. Does that mean that I just didn't see them? That's possible. I have seen other social media posts about trap being utilized more often in 2023. Feel free to let me know if you've either A, seen those videos, or B, you've noticed that pattern yourself, such that trap concepts are being used more now. It's a cool concept. As a high school coach, we used to, not on fourth down ever, but we used to immediately look when we were scouting the other team's offense, do they run trap? Because if they didn't run trap, we knew there were certain things with our defensive tackles that we didn't have to worry about in a given week. Check out this defensive tackle, how he handles it. I think he's got a pretty good idea of what might be coming. It's an influence trap initially by the way that Sewell and 60 deal with him. I misspoke there a little bit. An influence trap would kind of be this guard pulling out this way to influence him to widen up. They're still influencing him with their first steps, meaning Sewell and I think Glasgow, 60, the right guard. They're both kind of setting for a moment and then leaving him be. 56 does a great job identifying it, wrong arms it, which spills it to the outside. If Montgomery was to come downhill here through this gap inside of the trap block, probably not going to be able to pick up 5 yards. Great job of bending it, bouncing it outside. Nobody can pick up the front side safety. I think it's 20. Him and Derwin James there, unable to limit Montgomery. It's a cool concept. When you talk about how many teams run trap in the NFL that I've seen, 6 or 8 this past year, maybe 10. How many teams are willing to run it on 3rd and 5? 1, the Detroit Lions. How many teams are willing to run it on 4th and 5? -1, the Detroit Lions. It's an impossibly small number of coaches at that level that are willing to make these calls and live with the results, meaning possibly not gaining the first down, and draw the fans' ire for weeks on end. Same game, more typical utilization, attacking to the boundary. What I love about this is they're going away from St. Brown. You still have the option to go to St. Brown, who didn't go in motion. I think it was Raymond going in motion from left to right. St. Brown is stationary here. Going to run something like this. Laporta going to sit down. I think you get Reynolds on like a deeper in cut, and then Gibbs trying to release out into the flats. I love how the outside linebacker, D-end, edge defender, whatever, I think it's Mack, punches the running back in the face on the release to his side. Not enough teams do stuff like that to take away from the quarterback's read, meaning take away one of his options. Gibbs is staring directly at the boundary side defenders. I was a little bit off there with what I drew for Reynolds' route. You can see that Goff is certainly on him. Boundary side inside linebacker playing too heavy on the eyes, not identifying the route. Goff's quick thinking, quick processing, I should say, in terms of being able to go through the reads really benefits them here. It's a 4th and 2, by the way, complete to Laporta for 6 yards. Like I said, I might have been wrong with how many times they went for it on 4th down. It seemed like they went for it on 4th down 10 times, but I know that's not realistic. Finally, what I think is a truly anonymous play because of who the targeted player is here. Also, how they're utilizing Amon-Ra St. Brown as a lead blocker on the backside. This is a 4th and 1, week 18. 11 personnel, so you've got a tight end up top here. I think Laporta's already been hurt. Receiver St. Brown, receiver Reynolds, receivers Donovan Peoples-Jones, on the backside. So play action concept, cool. So trying to draw second-level defenders, and they certainly did here. And here, these guys are downhill. Notice St. Brown being used as a blocker. He's not a part of the route scheme at all. Reynolds releasing vertical. The over concept from Donovan Peoples-Jones. Wide open because 22 stepped up so much. It was too late before he could flip his hips and turn around and track back on it. Think about the 4th and 5 trap run play. 4th and 1 play action pass play. Ben Johnson does a great job of playing the shell game and running when you think he's going to pass, passing when you think he's going to run. Dan Campbell plays a role in that by allowing him to run an offensive play at all on some of these 4th down situations. Beautiful throw by Goff. I thought this was one of the more unique situations during the year, especially for people who are anti-Goff, whether you're a Lions fan or someone else. He can't throw on the move. He's not a mobile quarterback. Well, I don't think he is a mobile quarterback, but this is designed to get him outside the pocket. Theoretically, he could run for this first down. It's a 4th and 1, and look at what you've got. 22 is trying to settle underneath this route, but he was dead on arrival at the beginning of the play because he stepped so far forward and was too late to get into the wrong read, turn his hips, and get depth to deal with that over concept. Pretty cool route. I thought this was one of the more fun plays to try to analyze and talk about for a lot of reasons. The play action, Goff on the move, St. Brown being used as a blocker, and the intended target on the play being a guy who wasn't even with the team at the beginning of 2023. We'll actually look at a fourth down where Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell decided to go for it to close out a game. Week 18, of course, the Lions fans will never forget this, defeating Aaron Rodgers in his last game in Green Bay, intercepting his final pass. In fact, if you recall, the Lions had just taken the lead, I think with about 5 or 6 minutes left. Jamal Williams with a touchdown run. And then Rodgers throws this interception. About 3.5 minutes left. Kirby Joseph settles under it, gets the football back for the Lions with an opportunity to close out the game. Eventually end up facing a 2nd and 7. And what I really like, what I want to try to illustrate for this video is the play call that's used to try to finish the game. Now, this is not a fourth down situation yet. This will be an anomalous play. This is a 2nd and 7. You got a trips set up to the top side of the screen. It's a slot hitch to St. Brown. Ends up going, I think, for 2 yards, something like that. There's a hold called. You can see the yellow flag thrown on the field. But one more look at the formation. St. Brown in the middle of the trips, the number 2 receiver, slot hitch, slot screen, whatever your terminology is, up to the field, results in a 2nd and 17. So this is the very next play. That's 2nd and 17. St. Brown pretty much in the same location. Number 2 receiver, inside receiver to the trips. So second player in from the sideline or out from the middle of the field. Hitch to him and then lateral. Almost a disastrous play from the standpoint of possibly being turnover worthy. Only the great hands and hand-eye coordination by St. Brown. Goff getting the ball out quickly as well. They've caught the Packers in this heavy blitz pressure look on a 2nd and 17 with a too high safety look. So probably trying to disguise some people dropping out, and a great play call. Trick play, whatever you want to call it. Who uses a hitch and lateral with, I think, about 225 left in the game, something like that. Well, you use it if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a solid rock star football player from the way he plays, number 1, and number 2, from a ball security standpoint. He's got quarterback and running back skills, if you ask me. End zone angle, same play. Again, 2:17 left. Quickness of Goff getting rid of the football. Doesn't even do anything with his feet at all. Just opens his hips, and orients himself towards the target to get the ball out quick. You can see how close St. Brown was to possibly having a fumble forced. Gets rid of the football. Great job by Sewell. His athleticism to get out there and get a pancake is simply unparalleled. 3rd and 3. Heavy personnel by the Lions, trying to get Jamal Williams downhill. Probably should have been able to pick up the first down. I think it's Brock Wright, but I could be wrong. If he goes and gets the front side guy, this is pretty much an easy conversion to possibly finish the game. Talking about right here, he stepped down to the inside, and then his helmet flashed to the front side safety. It's a 3rd and 3. Whatever their blocking rules are is their blocking rules, but for me, we're working down and then to the inside linebacker, whatever terminology it is, God, whatever acronym you use to teach it. I would like to see him go get the front side inside linebacker. I feel like it'd be a pretty easy conversion on a down scheme. So leads to a 4th and 1, 120 left, 118 left. Very similar formation-wise to what they lined up in on that 3rd and 5 that I started the video against the Bears. St. Brown is not in the slot here as the number 3 receiver. He's the point man. So some people would still refer to it in the slot, but it's a snag concept to the downside of the screen, right-hand side of the offense on a 4th and 1 in Lambeau. Of course, we know the game didn't count for playoff purposes, but Goff gets rid of the ball quickly. It's DJ Chark on the catch. They had actually gone for it, and a completion to Chark, I think, to the left side on the previous drive, the drive that culminated with Jamal Williams' touchdown run to put them ahead in that game. So pretty cool, if you ask me, the willingness to play. At this point, I'll be honest with you, because I did a reaction video of this game because I had time to do so. It was the last game of the week, if I recall. for the NFL leading up to the playoffs. At that time, I thought, okay, does Dan Campbell do these things because it's Week 18 and they can't get in the playoffs? No, that's just who he is. Whether the game is a preseason game, whether the game is in the playoffs, the NFC Championship game. So that's who he is. I'm not a huge fan in some situations of leaving points on the board. The play calls is what we're interested in this video. And in this case, against a rival on the road and Aaron Rodgers, what turned out to be last game in a Green Bay uniform, it absolutely worked out in their favor. The other side of the coin is there are obviously times where it does not. Now, here at a second guess, just to revisit some of this. This is a 3rd and 4. St. Brown is in the backfield. You're going to have both an anomalous play, wide receiver in the backfield to receive the run, the ball on a direct handoff and a run concept. Kinlaw and I think Warner with a great job. Kinlaw, if you recall, is a guy who was criticized by a 49ers beat reporter quite publicly. So I'm kind of rooting for the dude to play and play well or reach his potential. Not necessarily against the Lions or my Ravens, but a great fit, if you ask me, by Warner on the backside here at a perfect angle to help Kinlaw finish the play. 3rd and 4, they hold St. Brown to, I think, 2 yards to create the 4th down. Here's the end zone angle of the same play. I really don't care about whether Dan Campbell chose to go for them or not. I credit and praise continually Ben Johnson and Campbell's, by extension, willingness to use St. Brown all over the place, to use him in the backfield as a decoy at times. A couple of other plays I could have showed of him in the backfield being a decoy, trying to free up other players, basically Sam Laporta. And I think being unpredictable. Could there be a point in time such that NFL defenses catch on to some of this stuff and are willing to be more heavy against the run on 3rd and 5 to try to stop the run? Well, then I think that can also swing back in the Lions' favor as well by being a little bit more traditional and throwing the ball on 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 6, which they generally do. But because of their willingness to run the football in some of these obvious passing situations and their willingness to go for it on 4th down, I think they can catch defenses off guard. I think they can really put pressure on defenses. They're willing to play 4-down football. This one ends up being incomplete. I think middle of the 3rd quarter, one of those situations where people obviously pointed out that you could have kicked the field goal or attempted a field goal. This is a 3rd and I think 9, 3rd and 10. 4th quarter, a little over 8 minutes left in the game at this point. Ends up being a 7-yard completion to St. Brown. And then the ensuing mesh concept on 4th and 3. I think you're down at this point already. At some point, you just got to give credit to the defense in some of these situations by just being extremely physical, disrupting the routes, such that St. Brown really doesn't get off the line clean, and his route is disrupted. Him and Laporta end up almost in the same exact spot on the mesh concept. Laporta sits it down, trying to target St. Brown over the top. And at the same time that you have physicality by the nickel defender and the corner down here, you've also got guys winning on the pass rush for the 49ers. So sometimes it doesn't matter what you do if you put yourself in predictable situations. Obvious pass, even though 4th and 3, as we've shown in this video, is a time period when is a situation when Ben Johnson will call a run play. It wasn't the right move there on 4th and 3 in San Francisco. Was it the right move to go for it? I don't know, and I don't care. I have a heck of a lot of fun trying to figure out why, when Ben Johnson's going to do some of the things he's going to do. For me, it was a tremendous learning experience in 2023 to watch film of the Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken and the Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. 2 vastly different offenses, 2 quarterbacks with different skill sets, both highly effective, obviously, and both able to get their teams within 1 win or a half, in the case of the Lions, of reaching the Super Bowl. It was a learning experience for me because I get to see different paradigms, different ways of skinning the same cat, trying to score points, as many as you can on offense, and being efficient and avoiding turnovers while doing so. I think the bulk of the Lions' turnovers, almost half in the regular season in 2023, was from 3 football games. I think they had 10 turnovers over a 4-week stretch. Those 10 turnovers occurred in 3 of the games. Generally very efficient, generally very clean. And in some of these money situations, 4th and 5, 3rd and 8, because they're willing to keep the playbook open, I think it really gives them an advantage dealing with modern NFL defenses. At the level of football that I coached, generally high school, it wasn't uncommon to see teams be a 4-down offense, but those were ball control offenses that ran the football with low risk plays, and they were trying to create as many 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s as possible, and by extension, 4th and 1, where they would just go for it. That's not the case at the NFL level. So I applaud these guys for the thought process, and I think there had to have been some really detailed, high level investigation or data sets created by their coaching staff and their analytics groups to look at when we can go for it, where we can go for it, and why. I will bring up one caveat to this. The defensive talent has been drastically improved for 2024. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. Proceed with that being a truthful statement for a moment, please. That the defense is going to be upgraded, more efficient, that the defense is going to be able to get stops more often in some of those obvious passing situations. There may be a toning down of some of the things that Dan Campbell does in terms of going for it on 4th down because you have a reliable defense. Or maybe we'll say it if you have a reliable defense, which I think you will from a coverage standpoint and the guys up front creating more pass rush situations. Hopefully you can get a consistent pass rusher on the other side opposite Aiden Hutchinson. I just did a film study video on him a week ago. If you haven't checked it out, I'll link it up in the description. I appreciate you guys' time. I hope you enjoyed the look at what I would consider to be anomalous or extraordinary play calls, concepts where Ben Johnson trusts his players to get in the right look. Basically, you're talking about Jared Goff executing and making the calls to being the quarterback to get the team in the right look. But Ben Johnson has to go through it during the week. There has to be a high-level teaching here. When are we going to do this? Run the football on 3rd and 10. Well, we're going to do it when we see this look by the Broncos or this look by the 49ers. Why are we going to do it? That has to be explained. In my experience, the why has to be explained on some level for at least 40% of your players. The super smart players will gather it as you introduce the play. We're going to run the football here because they got so many guys lined up over there. Well, that seems obvious, yes. But you'd be shocked that you have to explain it, a second and third time to certain players because they just don't see the field the same way that a coach does, the same way that a quarterback does. So it's your job to teach it, explain it, and prepare them for that moment. And I think, based on what I've seen, Ben Johnson is one of those guys that does that the best. Are there other coaches, who do that across the NFL? Of course. Andy Reid would be one of the names that comes to mind, obviously. Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Colts, formerly the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. I think he does a fantastic job as well, among others. I appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed this video looking at weird, crazy, anomalous play calls and decisions that the Lions sometimes make that are part of the design strategy, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.